Daddy, I want a new bike so I can go visit my new girlfriend. My little brother chuckled. Your what? Just yesterday you were telling me that girls were gross. You're such a weird kid. My dad laughed. You have a girlfriend, so why can't I have one? My brother replied while pointing to Mom. Before I go on, I have a question for you. Do you want to find true love someday? Like the video and subscribe to this channel and you will definitely find true love. It really works. Stop it, the two of you. It's time for dinner, my mom said. My family was the best in the world. Like, the absolute best. I lived with my mom, dad, and funny little brother Brandon. We were always joking around and having fun. There were rarely any disagreements or conflicts. We also did everything we could to ensure that our family bonds remained strong. You know, the simple things, like always eating together at meal times. My childhood was a perfect dream. I'm not sure when or why it happened, but when I was about 16, my parents began to have arguments. At first, they were about little things like my dad forgetting to wash the dishes or leaving his socks on the floor. Later, they became bigger disagreements about bills and other money-related issues. They'd argue every day. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sounds of screaming and things breaking. It was awful. My parents went from being the most loving couple in the world to enemies who deeply hated each other. Eventually, my dad decided that he was sick of the fighting. He booked a flight to Las Vegas with some of his friends, and we didn't see him again for 2 weeks. My mom was so angry that he was going to gamble when we were experiencing money issues. When he came back home, he was the happiest I'd ever seen him. He was beaming. Dad, what's up? What are you so excited about? I asked curiously. Darling, I've just won $5 million, he screamed. My mom started hopping up and down, and my little brother gasped. We're millionaires now? He said. Yes, son, we're rich, my dad replied. After that day, my parents no longer argued, and everyone was happy again, like old times. It was cool being rich. We rented our medium-sized house in the suburbs and moved to a mansion in a wealthy neighborhood. There were 8 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, 2 dining rooms, a movie room, a games room, and everything you could imagine. We even had a swimming pool. My bedroom was huge and luxurious. Our house was so perfect that we started having parties every week. We invited all our friends, and everyone was so impressed with our success. I didn't have to do chores anymore because we employed maids. That was a relief. My brother and I were sent to expensive private schools, and I was given my own credit card. Now I could buy whatever I wanted. I spent most of my weekends at the mall buying clothes, shoes, makeup, and frozen yogurt. I love frozen yogurt. The best part about being rich was the family vacations. We started traveling all over the world. We went to Dubai, France, Thailand, Kenya, and so many other cool places. We only stayed in 5-star hotels, and I'd always get a spacious room for myself. I was living my best life, as they say. I was already very comfortable and well adjusted to my new life as a rich person when my mom decided that we should take a mini vacation to Guam. She said she was in the mood for some sea and sunshine. My dad agreed and bought the tickets, then we all packed up and flew away. In the beginning, Guam was awesome. I went snorkeling and enjoyed seeing all types of sea creatures I had no idea existed. I really enjoyed the beach, food, and tourist sites. Brandon had a blast too. He met many new little friends at our hotel. It was all going perfectly until I heard someone knocking outside of my hotel room late at night. I opened the door and my mom was standing there, looking extremely worried. Her eyes were red and her hair was all over the place. Mom, what's wrong? I said. Ariana, have you seen your dad? She replied. No. What time is it anyway? I asked. It's 2 in the morning and he hasn't returned. He's never done this before. I'm worried. Anyway, go back to bed. I'll figure it out, she said. When I woke up hours later, he still hadn't returned. We tried to reach him on his cell phone, but we couldn't get through. Our flight was that afternoon, as we had only planned to stay in Guam for the weekend. My mom called the police and filed a missing persons report. We had no choice but to return home. On the plane ride back, I was filled with worry and fear. I felt really bad about leaving my dad there, but my mom told me she didn't have enough money to buy us new tickets if we decided to wait for him, and he never came back. After a week, we still hadn't heard from my dad. The police in Guam assured us that they were still searching for him, but they were having no luck so far. After a month, we still heard nothing. I don't know what to do. My mom said to me one night after dinner. What do you mean, Mom? I asked. Your father and I don't have joint bank accounts. The millions are in his account, and I have no access to them. Right now, I don't have much money, and this house costs a lot to maintain. I have to pay all the maids and the butler. I have to pay tuition for that fancy private school. I can't do it all. We're going to have to make some serious changes," she said, and then broke into tears. "Mommy, please don't cry," said Brandon as he started crying too. It was all too sad. We had to move back into our old house. I know you're probably thinking we could have just sold the mansion, but all the paperwork was in my dad's name, and my mom did not have authorization to do that. My brother and I were also sent back to our old school. I didn't really mind though, but what hurt the most was that my mom became sadder each day. My happy little household was now trapped in some old bubble of depression, and I felt so powerless. I tried to do little things to cheer my mom up. I'd make her favorite foods, buy her flowers, and tell her that she was a wonderful mom, but nothing worked. She couldn't take her mind off my dad, and she became more worried about him each day. It got worse and worse, until she finally locked herself in her room and refused to come out. I had to leave food at her door. I tried talking to her, but all I heard were sobs. I also had to become like a parent to my little brother, who became more and more confused. We had lied to him and told him that his father was on an important business trip and he'd be home soon. After 2 weeks, my mom lost her job. Her boss called to say that he was letting her go. He sounded furious. Now our family had no source of income. I was terrified. How could we survive? I imagined us becoming terribly skinny because we'd have no food to eat. Would I be able to continue school? Would I get to go to college someday? Would my life be ruined forever? After picturing the worst possible outcomes for a while, I decided I had to look for a job. I went to town and walked into every shop, asking if they had any vacancies. After stopping at about 20 places, I finally had some luck at a Thai restaurant. "So, you're looking for a job, huh? Are you still in school?" the manager said. "Yes, I will come straight after though, and I will work weekends too," I said. "That's going to be really hard." "Are you sure?" he replied. "Yes, I really need this job to support my family," I said. I was hired that day. I started off wiping tables and washing dishes. After a few weeks, they let me start waiting tables as well. I started to feel more independent and mature, but it was still an awful job. The other workers were mean to me for no reason, and the customers were extremely rude. One day, I accidentally broke a plate and the manager screamed at me. One of my coworkers laughed and said, "See why you shouldn't employ kids, boss?" "I'm not a kid. I'm just like you, trying to make ends meet. If you're so grown up, how come you're still stuck washing dishes here like me?" I screamed. My boss sent me home and told me not to return for 2 days. He said I was being punished for being rude to my superiors. After about a month, my mom started leaving her room once a day. But she smelled really bad and refused to shower. Brandon was always crying because he missed his mom. But I tried my best to comfort him. My grades at school were dropping too. As I worked all night, I found it hard to concentrate during the day, so I slept in all of my classes. "Some of you kids are so useless," one of my teachers yelled at me one afternoon. "Why would you come to school just to sleep? I'm sick and tired of you lazy teenagers who just sit around all day doing nothing. You're a complete waste of my time, Ariana," she continued. I burst into tears. She had no idea what I was going through, yet she chose to judge me and scream at me. That night, I got off work around midnight. When I got home, I decided to study until the sun rose because I was so behind on all of my assignments. The next day, I fought to stay awake at school because I didn't want to get yelled at again. I went straight back to the restaurant afterwards. I was extremely tired, but I was functioning okay at work. I was on my way to serve a few customers when suddenly I tripped over something I couldn't see. The food and drinks all fell onto an old couple. That was when I blacked out. Later, I woke up in a strange, dark room. I could hear beeping noises all around me. My heart raced and I began screaming, "Help! Help! Where am I?" A door opened and a light turned on. I could see a young nurse and a doctor approaching me. "Relax, dear, you're in a hospital. You fainted at work and you were brought here," said the nurse. "Am I going to be okay?" I asked. "You certainly will, but you're exhausted. You need to take it easy, okay?" she said. "Okay." I sighed with relief. "There's someone outside who would like to speak to you. Should I ask him to come in?" she asked. "Him?" I replied, but before I could finish, my father walked in with a young, beautiful blonde lady. "Dad?" I gasped. "Hey, sweetheart," he said as he touched my forehead lightly and smiled. I pushed his hand away and scowled at him. "Don't, hey, sweetheart me. Where the heck have you been all these months? We had to move out. Mom is depressed and Brandon is really sad. I had to get a job to support our family. And here you are, like nothing happened?" And who is that stupid woman? I screamed. My darling daughter, please listen. I am deeply sorry for all the pain I have caused. When we were in Guam, I realized that I needed to go into hiding. The people at the casino where I won the millions decided that I cheated the system. They sent some very dangerous people after me to hurt me. I flew to the Philippines where I changed my appearance and my identity. During this time, I met Belinda. He pointed to the woman. We fell in love and we are dating now. Soon she will be your stepmother. Anyway, I'm just in town for a little while. I have to go back into hiding. I'm really sorry about everything. You'll get through this, I'm sure, he said. He took Belinda's hand and he walked away before I could reply. After I was released from the hospital, I went home and found out that my dad had been there as well. My mom was clean and well-dressed, and Brandon was smiling. She explained that he had given her enough money, and he had started college funds for me and Brandon. We were going to be okay, and I would be able to quit my job. We had enough money, but things were never quite the same after that. I missed our perfect little family and how joyful we all used to be. I don't know where my father is now, but I hope he's happy.